So, as a digital artist to a plant magician such as yourself, I am wondering what herbs you would suggest to alleviate the existential despair that us artists face, or running a business in general. Is what plant would you recommend to alleviate despair?
Despair. Wow. I would say a couple actually. St. John's wort is an awesome herb that's used to boost the mood and alleviate depression. Um, it's also great, like if you're a woman and you like experience like extra despair.
Wow, that was weird. We just went through like a time warp. So you were mentioning St. John's wort. That's an herb I keep like forgetting about. Like how would you recommend that we use it to alleviate the existential apocalypse that comes with running our own business?
Yeah, so I take it as a tonic. I just take like a dropper full of the tincture that I have every day. My friend made it from St. John's wort that she harvested in Colorado. So I feel really grateful to have that. And yeah, so that's a really great herb, just taking like daily, just to kind of alleviate, depression and moodiness, and just like feel uplifted. And then the other herb I would recommend, not necessarily on like a daily basis, but if you're feeling like you need an extra lift out of despair, is blue lotus. Just because it's so relaxing and fun and uplifting. So yeah, taking some blue lotus like as a tea, or even like smoking some of the petals, can be really fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. Tristan smokes lotus pretty frequently, and I've heard that it can also, if you have like blue lotus tea, it can also induce like really interesting dreams. Am I like remembering this correctly?
It definitely can. Yeah, I've had experiences where I've had some really vivid dreams. And like in higher doses, it also kind of distorts my perception a little bit. Not in an overly, crazy way, but kind of like in a fun, just sort of giddy, relaxing way.
Oh, that's fascinating. I
Yeah.
remember I went to like a an herbalism conference in Boston many years ago and sat in this like giant group of people like collectively meditating in Blue Lotus, and I had this like really specific vision of like going to this like garden cave kind of thing, and
Mm.
there was just these like plants everywhere, and there was water. I was like sitting on this lily pad just like channeling my inner frog spirit, and like sitting there, and like it was such a specific vision that I had like during that experience. It was one of the most profound like meditation experiences that I've ever had, really.
Yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying, because when I've taken larger amounts of it, I've had this thought like, wow, this is such an amazing journeying herb, because it really just allows you to sink in and let the colors of your imagine run wild. And I'm so new to it, and I don't really understand like the component of it that does that. Um, but yeah, it's really incredible that way. So yeah, I resonate with that for sure.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So today on the Visionary Art Podcast, we have Victoria Olmer of Potion. Victoria has a business titled Potion, which I've just mentioned, creating magical elixirs and distributing them to in a really it's I love what you do. How would you describe what you do to the people who are unfamiliar?
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted to say hi and thank you so much for thinking of me and asking me to be on your podcast. Yeah, so a little bit about what Potion does. So we create botanical elixirs, essentially mocktails, beverages that people can enjoy, and they're all alcohol free. So really what we're trying to do is we're trying to create an atmosphere and sort of move forward this movement of being alcohol free, and giving people something really delicious and also healthy to enjoy in its place. And we also infuse all of our beverages with herbs so that people can sort of like really get those medicinal benefits of the herbs in a fun way.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. I stopped drinking again alcohol for about like a little over a year and a half ago. So, having that option, knowing that there's, other people out there who are providing something like this is like really, really important to me.
Yeah, it's so important, especially because alcohol is so incredibly pushed in our culture. And, even though it's not necessarily just for people who are alcohol free, it's such a benefit. Like when we've set up at shows and bars and things like that next to the bar that's serving alcohol, people just come up to us and they're so grateful. And they're like, wow, I'm so glad you guys are here so that I can buy something and enjoy it.
That's fantastic. I'm sure that you probably hear that a lot from the people who, come to visit your setup.
Yeah, we definitely get that comment a lot, which is really validating.
Yeah. Also, every time that I've seen your setup, it like you have a whole aesthetic and it's like an elegant witchy kind of vibe. These like long purple drapes around, and like the branding of it, the whole vibe that you've curated with it is so amazing. It's such an atmosphere that you've created.
Thank you.
I'm curious, like, what was the process of like creating that setup?
Yeah, so it really started with looking at all of my inspirations. So, two of my biggest elixir bar inspirations are Ambrosia Elixirs in New York and Elixir in Nevada City. And actually, I'm so excited. We went to go see Elixir in Nevada City when we were traveling cross country, and that was really cool to actually like see them in person after I had been following them on Instagram for a long time, and just like drooling over their photos. But yeah, so I was really inspired by the like dark, moody vibe that Elixir had. And I wanted to sort of bring in this idea of potion, which is like bright colors, bubbling over like fog, that kind of vibe. So that's where I like sort of wanted to marry this like dark, moody, witchy feeling with like the bright colors of our beverages. So I would say that's kind of where I got started. It was like, I guess what I would say is our setup is sort of an external representation of like how I feel on the inside. It's like I like took myself and like, made it real or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, that's how. And then, just doing a lot of Pinterest and gathering inspirations and things like that. So
That's so awesome. Yeah, having known you for a few years, it definitely feels like a incarnation of like an idea that's been growing within you for a long time, and it's like super amazing and inspiring to see you doing what you're doing. And even after moving to a new state, you're still acting like on these principles and establishing things. And like I know you have some really amazing things in the works. I'm wondering if you can indulge us in some of those ideas and projects that you're currently working on.
Yeah, I have lots of things that I'm currently working on with this business specifically. So we're actually doing a full rebrand, and we're going to be completely changing the business. So we're going to be changing our name, the whole aesthetic, everything.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's kind of like the big thing that's in the works. Pretty excited about it. Yeah, the kind of intention with that was to reach a wider demographic of people, because really what we want to do is spread this message far and wide, and I think while our previous vibe was really cool, I think it was also maybe like very limited to a specific demographic. So I feel like with the way we're going to lighten things up and sort of bring in like more of like a boho kind of like natural vibe, it's going to be a lot easier for us to reach a wider number of people and kind of show people like what we're doing and show them the herbal medicine that we can provide and that the earth can provide. So that's sort of like the main intention with our rebrand. And we're going to be creating a line of products that people are going to be able to buy, which is exciting. It was definitely a thing when we were vending before that people were like, oh my God, I want to take this home. Like, where can I buy this? And at the time I was just like, I don't know, like I just make it in my kitchen, man. I don't know like how to do that. But we're going to be, creating like actual physical products that people can bring home and be able to make elixirs themselves.
Oh, that's so cool. I want to get like a rain barrel of potion elixirs to have on tap, so I can just open up a portal to these amazing herbs. I love your description of these elixirs that are coming from the earth, because like they really are, like it's as close to like the natural plant medicines as they can get, like as if the herbs just like sat in clean water for a specific amount of time and then infused with that. But I have to imagine that there's like a lot more to that actual process of like creating these herbal mixtures. I'm curious, are you mostly focusing on like vending events, or are you creating like a larger scale online portal where people can like order these products?
So both. In addition to just doing festivals, we also want to do like private parties, weddings, things like that. And we also want to be able, like farmers markets as well, like food festivals and yoga festivals. And we also want to be able to sell these products to people to make at home, but also potentially partner up with bars so that bars can have alcohol-free options on tap as well.
Yes.
So that's kind of the big thing that's in the works. And just in general, making it more accessible to people, like not just limiting it to one event.
That's so awesome. That's so exciting.
I know.
I definitely resonate with like giving bars this option to have something that's like really that's non-alcoholic, because like a lot of bars like just sell beer. And for those of us who are there for the show, we're just there for the music, like not having those options, or like having to figure out how to, like, that's a problem I have a lot, is figuring out how to like bring my own cup and like make my own drinks that are, really to my liking at these events is like kind of challenging, but I also kind of really appreciate that challenge, because it just feels more true to me, and it allows me to be more me when I'm in that environment, because I have something that like really resonates with the vibe that I'm trying to like intake, I guess.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like it's really important, I think, I find that when I'm at an event, or when most people are at an event, they want to be able to have something that they're drinking and that they're enjoying. And so, when alcohol is the only option, or like soda or something, then you're like, okay, I guess I'll buy it. So it's, about having that other really amazing option, not just like mediocre option. And then, the fact that I feel like each of our drinks is so unique in the way that it makes you feel, that really like gives people a lot of flexibility with how they want to feel that night, or what vibe they're trying to create. Like, do they want to chill out, or do they want to like get really hyper and excited and dance a lot? So we want to be able to provide options to sort of like enhance the vibe that you're feeling.
I love that. That's amazing. Is that what the original inspiration for Potion was, to because like you went to shows and just didn't have options for like things that you like actually really wanted to drink?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a big problem when I chose to stop drinking. And one thing that I really liked in Asheville was that most of the time I was able to find kombucha or jun on tap, but at the same time, that's not available at a lot of places. So yeah, it was like rare that I was able to actually find kombucha to buy at a bar,
Yeah, for sure. I do like that there's like kombucha options around here, and Asheville is like, even despite that there is like such a thick beer culture around here, there is also a lot of other options that I really enjoy. Like the kava bar is someplace that I go multiple times a week.
Yeah, kava is wonderful. Yeah, that's also something that we want to provide to people. Yeah, it's a wonderful herb.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like when I first started taking kava, I was like 16 years old or something,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like right around the time when I first started smoking pot as well. And a friend of mine gave me this like little tea bag, and he's like, "This is called kava kava." I'm like, Kava. Why do you like not just kava?" And he's like, "No, it's kava kava." This is like 2008, mind you. This is a while ago,
Yeah.
and he told me to smoke it, and so I like put it in this like a homemade bong that I made out of like a Monster can, like
Oh
Monster
no.
energy drink, and just smoked like 2 huge bowls of it. And like I remember feeling like so relaxed, but like
Yeah.
also like surprisingly very
Coherent.
inebriated. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was very, very wobbly after that.
Mm, gotcha. Wow. Yeah, I can definitely do that. I was gonna say coherent because I was like, yeah, kava, it makes me feel drunk, but also like still in control.
Yeah, it's like the body feeling of being drunk, but like my mind is still like thinking clearly, but I'm like, wow, gravity is not what I remember. This is weird.
Yeah, I've felt that before. I also just wanted to comment really briefly on what you said about the thick beer culture in Asheville, because that's something that always struck me as a little weird, considering that the mountains there and the whole area is just so sacred and rich with like foliage and herbal medicine, just there in the forest, and I think that was also part of my inspiration of like making or helping to make people more aware of herbs and of the natural medicine that is all around us. So that's kind of my feeling of like, sort of inspiring people to have like this greater reverence, like for our earth and everything that she provides. And just to get out in nature and like go see it and go identify plants and eat leaves. So that definitely spoke to something that I've thought about a lot.
Oh, that's beautiful. Did you ever do like foraging in the hills of Western North Carolina?
Yeah, I have. I've done it a bit with my partner Tree, who is also he's a folk herbalist. And then I attended herb school a couple of years ago with Corey Pine, awesome local herbalist in Asheville, and we spent a lot of time in the woods, just like IDing plants and harvesting plants and processing them.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah, it
always
was
see
fun.
such a diverse range of plants whenever I go hiking, but I'm a computer nerd and don't really know anything about that. But I think, especially like for someone in my situation who's around like electronics all day, having that connection to the earth in that sense, through plant medicine and through plant food ultimately is something that I think
Mhm.
is can really help us as individuals ground and be like better at our practice, whatever that is. And I think
Yeah.
having that aspect is really important. And I'm like totally pumped that you're creating this platform where people can learn more about that and can have like a greater understanding about that. So I'm curious, like, what first got you into herbalism, and where might I start to like understand a little bit more about plants?
Yeah. So I would say what got me into herbalism to start was starting to attend some transformational festivals a couple of years ago in Asheville. Um, as the name suggests, they were definitely transformational. I had had no previous exposure to any of that, like, sacred geometry, herbal medicine, uh, I don't even know, like whatever other things are taught at like yoga and things like that. So it was just a completely new experience. And I attended a couple of workshops there um, around botany and herbalism and just had this feeling of like, oh my God, like I want to do this. Like, this is amazing. And that inspired me to move to Asheville, where I met my now fiance, Michael Tree, who is a folk herbalist of many years. So he's done a lot of foraging. And I remember when we first started dating, he would carry around this purple bag with a wizard on it and just always had like all these bottles in there. Like he would just pull out all these like tincture bottles and, just like jars of powders and things like that. And I was like, what is that? Like, like what's in your bag? And he's like, just open up your mouth. Like, I'm going to put this tincture in there. And so he kind of introduced me to a lot of it as well. And then from there, I just became friends with a lot of people in Asheville who are also herbalists. Cause as Asheville is a very, like an epicenter of alternative medicine practitioners. Yeah. So a lot of my friends were herbalists, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And I decided to go to herb school and deepen my practice. So yeah, it was just kind of like an exponential love that grew over time.
That's awesome. Well, so I want to learn more about plants and like understand how I can like have a diet that has more herbs that are like more adapted to me and like my, not just my physiology, but like my lifestyle as well. Because I spend, as we were talking about before the show, I'm in this seat for like 10 to 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
And my primary plant medicine right now is kratom, but I know that there's also like such a huge array of various plants. I'm definitely going to look into St. John's work, because sometimes the despair is it's overwhelming.
Yeah, and I feel you.
So I'm wondering, like, where could I start to like explore new herbs that might be helpful towards improving my lifestyle and improving my state of mind overall? Like, do you have any recommendations on just some place to start?
Absolutely. So I would say just start at the co-op. Like, go to the co-op and go into their bulk room. They have really, really deeply entrenched herbalists that work there, believe it or not, like people who like know their shit. So you can just go there and like ask for the herbalist and say, hey, I feel this, I feel that. What herbs would you recommend? And just bring them home. And typically they'll tell you, the best ways to process them, like in a tea or a decoction or whatever it may be. So that is probably the easiest way to start. And then I would say like some books. So one of the first books I was introduced to was Rosemary Gladstar's Herbal Healing for Women, which was really great. So obviously that's specific to women, but I would recommend Rosemary Gladstar and Susan Weed, both are whom are extremely renowned herbalists and have some really amazing books. So yeah, I'd say go to the co-op and ask around, check out those two herbalists, and just, ask friends who are herbalists, like what they would recommend. And just for fun, you can also start IDing plants. So you can get a wildflower guide and just take it into the woods with you and just like start IDing, whatever you're seeing. And obviously you might find that it's toxic, but it'll still help you like start to learn how to ID things and see like what you can harvest and bring home and see if you like it.
Yeah. Because there are, anytime I go hiking, like there's such a huge, diverse array of plants that are like constantly around me. And the one I know really well, I know that mountain laurels are mildly poisonous. They look like tiny, the flowers look like tiny little spaceships. The plant itself looks just like rhododendrons. Yeah. It's like one of my all-time favorite flowers, but I know that it's like mildly poisonous.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm definitely gonna look into that. I know there's like an app that can also like ID plants. Like, have you heard of that app? I forget what it's called, but have you heard of that app or used it at all?
I actually haven't used it, but I have heard of it. I guess I'm like still doing it the old-fashioned way, but I should probably check out the app and see if it works well.
I feel like that's the best way to do it, because, then if you have like a book or a guide, then you have a more in-depth understanding of like what these plants are and like specifically what they can do for us and what they can provide internally, and importantly, what they look like as well.
Yeah.
Because it would be a tricky mistake to misidentify something.
Yeah, I think that's how that one guy died, Into the Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like he made some very minor misinterpretation. Like, the leaves were jagged versus like smooth, or, just something really subtle. So yeah, definitely learning those subtleties. But who knows, like maybe the app works really well. I should actually check it out.
Yeah, that's something I'm really interested in because I love computers and I love being on computers. And if I can be I'm like on my camera nearly constantly when I'm hiking. So if there's an app that, that also worked offline, because most of the places I go, there is absolutely no service. And I think that's a big attractive feature of nature for me.
Yeah, I see you spending a lot of time out there.
I try and go like once a week.
Yeah, you've been taking like some amazing photos.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I try and always upload like as many as I can to my Instagram story. Like as soon as I get back from a hike, then I spend like an hour just going through photos and like adding them there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely been seeing some of them like, wow, he goes to some really cool places.
Wait, are you on Instagram?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait, what's your account name? I'll ask you this at the end too, so people can connect with you.
My Instagram right now is Potion ABL.
Oh, okay. All right, awesome.
Yeah. But I'm probably gonna change it to the new name.
Yeah. Potion LLC. Is that where you're going with
it? Make it sound more professional. No, I'm like debating whether or not I should tell you guys the new name or leave it to be a surprise.
You can leave it a surprise.
Okay. Yeah.
Or you can drop it for us. This podcast will probably release in like 3 days from now.
Okay. But I will leave it as a surprise.
Yeah. For the people listening though, the change may have already happened.
Yeah.
So I want to ask about like ethical foraging and foraging that is conducive to the health of the environment that we are foraging from. If we do like see a plant and we're like, ooh, that one, it will alleviate my existential despair, I'm going to pick it. How can we pick it in a way that is good for the environment and that doesn't cause any damage or like prevent it from growing back?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in herb school, I was actually taught very specific percentages based on whether it was a tree or a shrub or a flower. And I can't remember the exact ratios. But I think in general, it was like a fourth of any given stand. So like a stand would be like a large area of herbs. For example, if you go into the woods and you see like a whole, sort of area of like ghost pipe or dandelions or something like that, that would be a stand. And to harvest about a fourth of that so that it has the ability to regenerate. And the same goes for trees. Like if you harvest more than a fourth of its branches, it will die. So yeah, just being really, careful with how much you're taking. And also, if you're not seeing an abundance of the herb in that area, then do not harvest it. For example, like if you only see a tiny patch of an herb and you don't see it anywhere else, then I would just leave it. But if you're seeing like multiple stands and a pretty good abundance of it, then you can probably go ahead and harvest a little bit. The other thing is going into areas that aren't typically harvested from. So you'll find that with herbalists, a lot of the time they'll have their like secret their secret harvest spots and they won't tell you about it.
Yeah.
And the reason being because, well, A, they want the herbs, but also because they don't want other people coming in and harvesting the herbs in a non-sustainable way.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And I can completely understand, because whenever I'm out there exploring, I see something that I'm like, oh, I kind of want to take that. Then I get this like immense guilt. I feel like I'm just contributing to the greed of humanity by like removing this wildlife from its natural habitat.
Yeah. It's a really good thing that you're sensing that, because it's real. And there's other factors that go into it too. Like, does this plant take 10 plus years to generate? Like, for example, Trillium, I think, takes like 10 years to flower or something like that. And it's like only a few inches high. So it looks like it's not very old. I could be wrong about the flowering, but I know it's like a really long time. So yeah, like knowing what the different plants are and if they take a really long time to grow is also something that would be really helpful to know. And then the other thing is just being able to ask the plant, like ask them if you can take from them, if you can harvest their medicine. It's kind of just a feeling of tuning in and meditating with it and sort of connecting with its spirit. And you'll be able to get like a pretty clear, yes, you can take, or no, you can't. So yeah, I'd say combining all those steps, you'll find that you'll be harvesting in a sustainable way, and it'll feel much better that way.
Cool. That actually kind of aligns with the ethos that I have when I do go into the forest and I see something that I'm like, ooh, what's that? Yeah. I'll hold on to it for a minute and, just kind of look at it closely and just kind of feel it. And I'll get this sense of like, what will I be able to give back to this environment if I do hold on to this, if I do take it home and like put it on my altar or something. I had that experience very strongly at Shining Rock earlier this year, and I hiked up there with a friend in the wintertime, and it's actually where I have a painting called Winter at Shining Rock. That's like the hike that this is the specific hike I'm speaking of, and I took I think it was 3 stones. Like, have you been to Shining Rock before?
I don't think I have.
It's basically a like enormous quartz crystal boulder that is perched on top of a mountain. It's one of the most mind-blowing places, if not the most, that I've ever been in my life. It's at like 6,000 feet elevation, and it's like literally this gigantic megalithic quartz boulder that you can sit on top of, and like there's this profound energy there. And on this hike, I took like these 3 small little crystals because like I knew that I was going to do a painting. And on the 3.5 mile hike back down, I like stopped mid trail. I was like, I have to return these. My friend just looked at me like we climbed like 3,000 feet to like get to this this location. And I'm just like, I mean, not today, but like the next time I go back, I have to return these. So I went on a birthday hike to Shining Rock about a little over a month ago, and I brought those crystals back and just like gave them thanks, and like, you guys inspired me to make a painting. And like I sat in this brilliant quartz throne that was like made for one, and I was a party of one that day, and it was a party. It was my birthday. Mm-hmm. Which it's always a party when I go into the forest. But I left them there, and then there was no rain in the forecast, but as I began leaving, it started raining, and I got rained on for like the entire 4 miles that I was hiking back. Wow. It was kind of a freaky experience because it looked like there was no thunder or anything, but I had this feeling of like I'm on top of a mountain and I could get struck by lightning. Like that's a possibility. So I just like started hiking like substantially faster. I'm like, is this because I took these rocks? Like, is that why I'm soaking wet right now?
Probably. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, experiences like that really remind you of how vast and powerful nature is and how small we actually are. Like, I felt that a lot when we were out west and we were driving through the desert, because if you've ever been out there, it's just like hundreds of miles of just like nothing. I mean, not nothing, but desert. And it's really intimidating because there's no people out there, it's like completely desolate. It's so expansive and you don't have any cell service. And it just brings this feeling of like, oh my God, what if like my car breaks down or something? Like, will anyone find me?
Yeah.
But it also really creates this like reverence for nature and how magnificent it really is. So yeah, that sounds like it was a really cool experience for you. And I also wanted to mention something I had totally forgotten, which was in addition to all of those things to do for sustainable harvesting, I think it's also really important to give something back. Like you mentioned, my sweat lodge teacher, Gail, based in Asheville, is always reminding me like, yeah, if you're going to take this plant or this feather or whatever it might be, like give something back, and it could be anything. It could be like she says, spit, hair, a stone, like any part of you that you want to offer to give thanks. So yeah, I'm glad that you reminded me of that, because that's really important too.
Oh, that's really that's really important. I in our human culture, if we give someone else our spit, that's like an insult. But I suppose with nature, there's some like unique compounds that are in our saliva that could like be of benefit. And if we do it in like a loving way, then I never thought of it like that. But I really like that sentiment of of giving back, because I feel that energetically kind of like keeps the balance of things and keeps us like ensures that we are like giving something back and that we are contributing. Because my idea with contributing, when I like take something, which I rarely ever do, I used to take like really beautiful stones more frequently, but then I like started feeling a bit guilty about it. I always try and give like a little bit of water, or like, if I'm making a kratom drink, I'll like give a little bit of that to the dirt, and just as an offering, just as a thank you to this gigantic, enormous, unfathomably large marble that's flying through space, that just happens to have like all this incredibly powerful plants that are hiding in plain sight. And in the year 2021, we are like, most of us are really disconnected from this entity, from the spirit of Gaia herself. And I love that the internet is actually helping us make a comeback to that place, and to this place of reverence for the incredible planet that we sit upon.
Wow. Yeah, I guess it does. Like, in what ways do you think it does that?
Hashtag Magick with a K on Instagram is a really big niche, and there's a lot of information there on the things that you're speaking about how to create balance within ourselves by using plant medicine, and by using these tools that nature has provided for us to create like a more healthy lifestyle for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that also reduces the impact that we have on nature, because we only know about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch because of the internet, and because of this giant information network that someone who has gone there and seen it, the groups of people who have gone there and seen it can show us pictures. They can show us exactly what's going on. And like, I think about this all the time. Like, I go on YouTube rabbit holes of how to dispose of trash in the best way. For some reason, that just like really interests me, because when I throw something in the trash, then it just the garbage truck takes it, and that's the last of it that I see.
Yeah.
Like, as far as I'm convinced, it's magic. It
Right.
just vanishes. But
Absolutely.
it doesn't vanish. It goes to a landfill or to an incinerator somewhere, or it gets like shipped to a third world country where they put it in a giant pile, and then people in poverty will like sort through it and like look for something of value in there. And that idea just freaks me out. Like, I want to be as sustainable as possible in my lifestyle, and that's also why I like literally collect materials for my artwork, such that all of my packaging that I use to ship artwork is all sustainable. It's all reused and like
That's
secondhand
awesome.
finds that I've like personally refurbished and made a little bit better. And more suitable to like, to carry this like piece of artwork that represents the mystic sacredness of these landscapes. And that's something that's like really, really important to me, because I believe that within our lifetime, within our generation, we can really make an actual lasting difference in the planet and create a more sustainable environment and future that will benefit the next generations, the next 7 generations, and create like literally leaving the place looking better than when we found it. But it's all that information is still really new, and it's not exactly mainstream at this point in time.
Right.
But it's becoming more so.
Yeah. It's becoming more so for sure. And I really like that you're doing that. And yeah, I think that as a generation, we're kind of, getting more and more fed up with the way that things have been, including like the lack of sustainability. And, like, of course you can create all your own products and go completely trash free and this and that. But it takes time. Like, it takes time. And as people who are having to like work for our livelihood all the time, it's really challenging to, carve out the space for that. And so I think as a generation, like, we're kind of just getting fed up with that way of being, and really challenging it. And I was going to say also, like, we're definitely challenging the healthcare system, like I know as for a fact that I'm fed up with that. And I'm fed up with how, doctors completely disempower us to be in control of our own health. So yeah, I think that, we're just shifting the paradigm to create a better way of being. And yeah, that's a big part of what we do as a company. And like you, I really just want to go trash free and just create a lifestyle where that's normal and it's not like an abnormal thing.
Yeah, I love that you're doing that, and that you're supporting that endeavor of facilitating our connection with the plant spirits that are grown directly from the earth. I'm curious, like, what are some ways that you practice sustainability in Potion?
Yeah, so we try to source our plants from sustainable sources, as well as like, as organic as possible. And we also use biodegradable cups.
Nice.
Yeah. It's interesting because it still feels like weird to me. Like, obviously it's like, it feels like it's the best option for serving people in a convenient way. And like, it's a little bit more expensive, and that's totally fine. But I guess I still have some qualms about like what biodegradable actually is and if it's actually like fully biodegradable. So like something that I really would like to do would be to have like an actual brick and mortar business where like nothing that I use is disposable. And it's all just like glassware, things that I can wash. So of course that's something way in the future. But yeah, I would say those are the ways that we're primarily trying to be as sustainable as we can right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know that there's some forms of plastic that are like biodegradable, that are made from like plant cells, and if you put them in the dirt, then like 4 or 5 weeks later, they'll just like completely disappear and like melt into the planet.
I would like to find those because I understand that these are made out of like vegetable proteins, I believe, but I still like haven't verified that it's actually like really legit. So if I can find, or even if you know of some better, websites or resources, I would definitely look into it.
Yeah. Or if any of the viewers know of a website or someplace, that's creating really solid biodegradable wares such as that, then leave it in the comments so that other people can seek those out and use that, because I think this is a thing that's only going to get larger and larger as time goes on. I think only more and more people are going to catch on with this. And I love that the Burning Man principle of bringing our own cup has become as popular as it has.
Yeah.
That makes me super excited because like I just recently got this cup at a show this weekend, and I'm now going to take it to like every festival
Yes.
and every show if I can in the near future, and just fill it full of whatever liquid I want.
Yeah, I think that brings up a thought of like giving people an incentive to bring their own cups. Something I've considered and maybe we'll start doing is offering like a slight discount if you have your own cup. And that way people can feel more inspired to come back for another drink with their own cup.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I know at the Kava bar, if you bring your own cup, then I think they give you either like a discount or like they'll just fill it up. There's one guy that works there who gives me like a free like kratom brew anytime that I go there, which is really cool. Anytime I see that he's at the register, I'm like, yes.
You're like, here's my cup.
Yep.
That's cool.
So you brought up the sweat lodge. I kind of wanted to just talk about like ceremonies for a second, because you invited me to my first ever sweat lodge, which was like probably one of the most profound experiences that I've ever had in ceremony. I think it was like exactly like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say a while ago.
Yeah, in like 2018, I think, because I believe we had just moved into our previous place before we lived here. I think I could be, but anyway, the experience that I had was like I felt my grandfather tap on my right shoulder when we were like speaking. When we were like connecting with our grandfathers, when it was that section of the ceremony, and I was like saying my grandfather's name over and over again, like, Maurice, thank you. I wish I got to know you better in your life here. I'm thankful for everything you've done for our family. I'm thankful for, how you raised my father. I'm so thankful for everything that you do. And I suddenly just felt this tap like on my right shoulder. Like it was like a masculine like tap.
Yeah.
And
like
it was
very
3
visceral.
of them. And I at first I thought that it was Tree, your partner. So I kind of like, and like, it's pitch dark. So I kind of like reached my hand out to just like see like maybe he's like right next to me, and it was him. And like I had to lean like all the way over before I felt that like I felt like his arm hair or something, like a really subtle touch, and I was like, oh my god, he's like 3 feet away from me.
Whoa.
Like and then I was like, Maurice, is that you? And I felt that tap again.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was totally mind blowing as I like asked him to confirm. I'm like, is that really you? Is this really my grandfather? And then that next tap came in, and I was just like, wow. That was the first and possibly only time in my life where I felt like the presence of a loved one who had passed. So I'm curious, like,
it's incredible.
It was profound. I'm curious, like, what other ceremonies have you been part of, and what kind of experiences have you had in those settings?
Yeah, so I would say the one that I feel the closest to is the sweat lodge ceremony. When I was in Asheville, I would sit with them every month, and honestly, I've been to like every ceremony since I moved to Ohio because I just keep driving down for them. because it's just such a wonderful community. So that's like the primary one that I feel really called to. And um, yeah, it just feels like a family, like I go there and I see these people that I love and we pray together and it just feels really good and welcoming. So yeah, that's the main thing. And then we also, I was also a part of a coven in Asheville, and left, but would like to return to it if I ever move or when I do move back to Asheville, which was kind of like an eclectic pagan group of women. And that was really potent. We learned a lot as we were trying to create it together. And we actually ended up hosting our first public ritual, which was on Samhain of last year, right after Omen at the Hawk and Hawthorne. So
Wow.
that was our first public ritual, and it was an ancestral journey. So basically, we guided all of these people who were attending into the underworld to connect with our ancestors and ask them for support, in how we can, help facilitate a better world and sort of lift us out of the struggle that we're collectively enduring as a human race. And that was a really potent ceremony for me. I actually had a couple of, or that night was the first night I had a contact with one of my ancestors, a very, very, very old woman. I believe she was Polish, or at the time, obviously it wasn't called Poland. This was like, the setting was like pre anything. Like she was living in a hut in the forest, like, cooking food over a fire and harvesting all of her plants and things like that. So I connected with her, and I won't go into the details because it's kind of a long story, but basically she was showing me some very ancient forms of divination and magic. And it was just really incredible to connect with a spirit who was actually like visibly showing me these old forms of magic.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then the next day I did another ceremony and connected with her again, and she showed me another form of divination, like things I had never even heard of. So that was really, really incredible. I did not expect to experience that. I thought I was just facilitating the ceremony for other people. And so, to have dropped in like that was a really kind of mind-blowing experience. So yeah, so the coven was really powerful. They're still practicing. It's a Red Moon Temple, an awesome group of ladies. And yeah, I've also sat in a couple of teepee ceremonies, which is a Native American church where you go around and you eat the sacred cactus, peyote. And I've taken a part in a few ayahuasca ceremonies as well. So yeah, those were some of the potent ones. And yeah, I welcome in many more ceremonies to come.
Wow. That I can only, what it sounds like is that you connected with an ancestor from like 1,000-ish plus perhaps years
For
back
sure.
in the past. And I can only imagine the kind of divination and magic that people practice at that time, like only having candlelight, having like, such a limitation of technology versus today we have an excess of technology, even like too much for a lot of people to ever explore all of it in their entire lifetime. But back then, being like that in touch with the land and that in touch with our own intuitive sense of like what we should do, or like what the weather is going to be like in a week from now, like such that
Yes.
the crops will grow, such that the livestock is flourishing. I can really only imagine the kinds of practices or rituals that people perform during those times. And we know historically that like some of them were super extreme, like the Mayans, like cutting people's heart out and then like pushing them down like a 700-foot staircase going up a pyramid, or really extreme things like that to like appease the gods of agriculture so that it rains here in Mexico.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because, yeah, it was like I had this sense that back then for her, everything was just so quiet and so humble, like in our day and age, I feel like there's a lot of sort of publicity around magic, kind of like, this is what I'm doing, like, check it out, which is cool. But for them back then, it was really more about survival. Like, yeah, she was showing me how to use the liver of a bear to determine how harsh the winter was going to be.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Like looking at it and seeing if it was like glossy or foggy or clear. Yeah. Cause for them, it was like, if there was going to be a harsh winter, that means weeks of prep to make sure that you're going to survive. Um, so yeah, definitely a very different vibe 1,000 years ago, for sure.
For sure. And ideally using like all parts of the bear. Like if you're going to take its liver, then like definitely utilize the meat and the fur and the bones of it and everything, which like just the thought of me doing that like makes me like super uncomfortable because we've become so like detached from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely have. Everything is extremely convenient. But I'm also seeing this really big movement, especially in the mountains there, of people who are wanting to return to that way of life. To go back to the land and learn how to grow their own food and learn how to build their own houses and hunt and things like that. So that's been really cool to see. I'm seeing here in Ohio that it's not really like a trend the way it is in Asheville. So yeah, hopefully it can sort of radiate out of Asheville and what other epicenters it's happening and out into the world, because it's really important. And it's really important to return to living in community and relying on each other, to live a good life. Because we're like, we can't do everything by ourselves. It's impossible. It's not sustainable. So I'm really enjoying this movement of community that I'm seeing and really wanting to manifest it in my own life as well.
For sure, and I can only feel that in Ohio you're also needed to radiate out like a greater connection to the planet and a greater connection to the plants that nurture us and that like in some senses actually rely on us to cultivate them and to grow them and like propagate their species such that they can have more of their species around. And they do this by providing this really unique medicine that grows inherently in them. And by us actually harvesting like a fourth of them can actually help them grow more and spread their seeds even further. So there is like a biological advantage that I imagine many of these plants have towards like actually providing us with these nutrients and these medicines.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like harvesting them so that they can grow back stronger and more abundant. And yeah, it's almost as if they exist to help us, us and the animals and the mycelium and all the life around them. Something that it's cool that I learned is when you harvest mushrooms, which by the way, be very careful about when you do. There's a lot of deadly lookalikes sometimes. Is when you harvest the mushrooms to like kind of brush the gills, so that you're scattering the spores around before you take them. So that just kind of helps like feed the spores back into the earth and help with facilitate the growth of new mushrooms when you harvest them. So just a cool tip that I learned recently.
Oh, that's so cool, and that makes like complete sense, because then we have the spores spread out such that the mushroom can like continue to propagate in other places. And I imagine that they probably the mushrooms themselves rely on us humans to to collect them and then let those spores travel even further, such that they can inhabit new environments and, you know, grow their mycelium networks in a larger expanse of land.
Yeah. It seems like some mushrooms are very symbiotic with humans. I can't speak for animals. I'm sure that it's the same way, but yeah, it almost seems like we're supposed to imbibe them. And naturally when you harvest them, it's like they kind of just drop their spores. So yeah, it makes you wonder like what the mushroom's secret intention is.
I know the psilocybin mushroom is definitely here to show us source in the most visceral sense that it can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very potent medicine and a favorite of mine for sure.
Yeah, it just seems like too convenient that it just happens to like fit the same. I might be wrong, but I think it fits like the same neuroreceptors as DMT. So it like puts us into this like almost lucid dream like state where where our senses are heightened and like our inner thoughts, our inner worlds are like a little bit more pronounced and apparent to us, like through this really potent fungus medicine.
Yeah. It almost like it puts you in a flow state to where like I've found that instant manifestation is more of a thing when you're under the influence of psychedelics. Like things just appear. Like I remember being at a festival and I had taken some things and I was like, I really like want like some cacao beans. And someone walks up to me and he's like, hey, do you want some raw cacao beans? And just hands me like a handful of them. And I was like, yay. You know, and it wasn't even like a weird thing. Like it was just, I just had this feeling of like, oh, of course, like this is just how life works, you know? Yeah, because we really do have that ability to just live in the flow like that. So that's what I really appreciate about them.
Yeah. And it's interesting how like, you know, just having that thought of like, I would really appreciate like this thing coming to me in this specific moment, like how that would, you know, create, it creates that like energy that we're putting out that like by giving me this thing, it will allow me to do more things. It will allow me to provide more. It will allow me to to give more to the world. That's kind of what provide means. But it's when we're like in that mind state, it is truly amazing how like those kind of things can come to us, or we realize like how close they actually are. Like something that keeps me really motivated is knowing that every single thing I could ever want in life is on the other side of a specific set of actions. Like all I have to do is like write the correct things and share them at the correct time and with the intention of them reaching the right person. And then I can sign a contract for a $50,000 animation project or something like that. Like that could happen tomorrow if I make the right decisions today.
I love that perspective. Yeah, like, you're absolutely right. And I definitely like see ways in which I can incorporate that into my own life too. One thing I noticed, like what you were saying before, was with the mushrooms and psychedelics, is like they really help us clarify like our purpose and like what we're supposed to be doing, and you know, like clarify the way that certain things that have happened in our lives like come together to like show us certain things. Like I just feel like the messages become really clear. And I had that like an experience like that too when I was in that ayahuasca ceremony of like it just became so apparent that I just had to like listen and stop ignoring like what my body was telling me, which is just like you have to be yourself, you have to like pursue your creativity, you know, you can't keep ignoring that and like pushing through it. And it's funny because now I'm starting to see that theme emerge of like I have to like pursue this life that I want, or else I'm basically going to suffer, you know? So yeah, I really like how they provide that clarity. and your perspective of like, yeah, it's just a certain set of actions. Like it's not something that we had to sit around and hope for, or like, feel sad that we don't have it. We just have to take action and then like create it ourselves, because we're like the creators and we're in control.
Yeah. I love that. It's just understanding that like it is there. It exists within the vortex of the future, and that possibility is ever present. It never leaves. And when we really listen to like the callings that are inside of our soul, then that's when the magic really happens, because like not only are we providing like something that is like truly authentic to us, but it's something that authenticity that of which we're expressing ourselves like echoes out into the universe, and it inspires other people to do things that like that in the moment might not make sense, but like on a soul intentional level, these things are so important to us. And if it feels really truly right, which like when it's there, we will know internally that it's right, then that action that we take is like a positive reverberation across the world. Like something interesting that happens to me whenever I go on like a mild or even a heavy psychedelic journey, then like it's weird. I get ideas for content. These like voices will show up and they'll be like, you have to make this video. You have to write this script. You have to make this silly cartoon. You have to make this content and share this stuff with the world. I'm like, why am I being told to like make a post on Instagram like from this mushroom trip? This is a little odd, but like, okay, like I hear it.
Wow, it sounds like you have a muse. Awesome.
Sometimes very, very much so. It's like very clear that like these are things that like all my life I've enjoyed entertaining people. Like the time that I feel the most happiness in life is when I'm providing entertainment in some way to other people. Like whether it's through highly detailed paintings, or whether it's through like really goofy comedy videos, and like because the ideas that I get internally, like when they appear, they're so viscerally clear what I need to do.
Wow.
And it's plant medicine that allows me to kind of get in touch with that. And it feels like this, it feels like my existential reason for being here. And I think
that's such a gift.
It is. It is. I'm so unbelievably grateful that like I know like what it is that I'm supposed to like be providing for the world, because I recognize that like a lot of people are like kind of unsure. Yeah. And that clarity is actually a really rare thing.
It is. Yeah. And I think too, it's not even necessarily like the uncertainty that's getting people. I think it's more of like the, I can't speak for everyone, just speaking for myself. I think it's more of the beliefs about what we think we should be doing instead,
right.
Because I think it's been really cool to watch the people that I know and love, like you and Tristan and like all these other friends, like really stick with their passion and what they love. And then like I'm on the other side, like watching it unfold and get get even more out into the world. And, like it's just really amazing to like see you guys grow because you stuck with what you wanted to do. I think it's also a challenge for a lot of people who feel like they need to be doing something else, like working the 9 to 5 and having the 401k and the retirement plan, like all these things, and like if they don't pursue it, then they're going to be broke or something like that. So yeah, I guess I'm wanting to share that I feel like it's really important to just do what you want to do anyway.
Yeah.
Like even when your brain is like screaming at you not to, like to just do it anyway, because it's going to be worth it in the end.
Absolutely. Like it can make sense to us personally when we receive that message in a way that like literally nobody else is capable of understanding. And like once we establish it and we like do the work and take the actions, whatever that series of actions are, like then it starts making sense to the rest of the world. And it starts making sense because we're leaving like a really authentic impact on the people around us, on the people who follow us and who observe like what we do and what we're creating. It inspires in a way that's really, really unique, and I think also essential. Because if every person on the entire planet was like acting in accordance with their highest intention and with their highest goal, like we would be living in paradise. We would have robots doing all the farming for us. We would have a guaranteed annual income. We wouldn't have to work if we don't want to. All of our needs would be met and provided for us through automation, and it would be like a completely fair and just society.
Right.
Which is why I think we should dose the entire world with psilocybin. I'm just joking. Some people would lose their minds.
I totally had that thought too. I was like, it's not a bad idea. Won't do that. I won't do that.
I'll resist the urge for just a little longer.
Just give it a couple weeks.
No, in all seriousness, I've been dosed like without my consent and like got nothing out of the experience.
Oh really? Oh no.
On 1.5 occasions. One of the half occasion is when I ate like way too many mushrooms because someone just offered them to me for free, and he was like holding a huge handful of mushrooms, and I was like, what if I just like ate all of those? What do you think would happen? And he's like, just like put them in my hand, and he's like, eat them. You have to eat them right now. I was like 19 or something, like just didn't know any better. I had one of the most intense trips of my life. It was horrifying. It was like 3 grams of like, they were like the ugliest, most disgusting mushrooms I've ever eaten in my life. I was like merging with my car in this like fractal of like Egyptian architecture. It was terrifying. Like I wanted nothing more for it to end. Eventually I was like at my partner at the time. I was at her place, and like I don't remember this, but I guess for like a couple hours I was walking around naked, and I would ask what time it was, like every like 5 minutes, and then I would look at the clock. I would say what time it is, and then I would like go and ask my partner at the time what time it is, and she would like tell me. And then I would go lie down for like another 5 minutes. And I guess I did this for like 2 or 3 hours. I literally have no memory of it whatsoever. But eventually I like came out of it, and I felt like something really bad had happened. Like I felt like there was just some crazy repercussions I'd have to deal with. I was like, oh God, this is bad. Like this is so bad. What just happened? And I asked my partner what happened. She's like, oh, are you back? Okay, yeah, you just walked around naked asking what time it was. I'm like, is that it? She's like, yeah, that's it. Like, oh, okay. And then like this, I ate a sandwich that I'd saved in the fridge, and it was like one of the best sandwiches I'd ever eaten. Like I was so overjoyed at the fact that like everything was fine. I'm like, oh my God, everything's fine. Like it's fine. I can't believe it. Like everything's fine. It's okay. It's cool. It's all good.
Yeah, that feeling of just like, wow, I survived, and like I'm good now.
Yeah, it was a really contrasting experience to like the horror of the beginning of it.
Yeah, they can be pretty scary. I had a journey a couple days ago, actually, on my birthday, for the first time in like 3 or 4 years, because I had been so traumatized from that ayahuasca experience. Like that ayahuasca ceremony was like the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Like I had PTSD.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really scary. So I was like, I avoided it for a really long time, and then I finally like took some on my birthday, and it was good. I was scared actually for the majority of it, But when I started to sort of become more coherent, I had some really amazing, thoughts and movements around just kind of like the wound that we are experiencing as a humanity, like the mother wound, because I had this red cloth like sitting on my altar, and I was just staring at my altar, and like the candles were going and the incense was going and the music, and it was in the sage, and it was just really beautiful. And I'm just sitting there in silence staring at my altar, like staring at this cloth, because it's funny because when I started that experience, I was trying to decide between the red cloth and the blue cloth, like in the Matrix, and I picked the red one. And all of these symbols and metaphors like came together in my mind like so perfectly, like a puzzle just locking into place. And I just saw this like mother wound that flows like through all of us, especially the red like represents the blood, the life force, and just the way humanity is suffering so much because of the fact that the masculine and the feminine are like not in balance, and like the way that the goddess and the feminine were like systematically like torn down and removed. And so now we're kind of living in this world that's out of balance. Like we're living in a very masculine dominated world. And I don't mean that by men by any means. I mean that like energetically, and that's where that feeling comes from of like, I have to work, I have to be proactive, I have to create, I have to, I have to do this and this and this. That's a very like masculine proactive thing to do. And that's why so many of us don't know how to be yin, don't know how to relax and be creative and do the things that we love just because we want to, just to nourish ourselves. So that was cool. I just felt like sharing because it was just so, so relevant to myself and also to just a lot of the humans that I know who experience existential dread, as you mentioned. So yeah, I think it's important that we cultivate more feminine energy and more feminine balance into our lives every day. And that can really be beneficial for us and also like radiate outward and inspire other people.
I agree so fully. It's something I've noticed about like, especially in like the hustle culture and in the self-help culture, is that like too much of that content, it feels productive to like always be listening to podcasts about like growth and always listening to inspiring stories and like always be learning things and enjoying ourselves, like never taking a break. And that's a really masculine energy right there, to like, just constantly be in that state of like absorbing information and delivering value in any way that we can, like working 16 hours straight and just never taking a break. Breaks are for losers. We have to go fast. We have to get a lot done. And that energy, I think, is literally driving us insane. And I think it's hurting us like on a physiological level, because the amount of cortisol that like your body ends up releasing when we're pushing ourselves that hard. And I say this because it's something I personally experienced. Like when we take time to just like watch a TV show that we like, I think in that stage of like rest and recovery is where we actually like absorb that knowledge. When we actually take time to like enjoy ourselves and like do something that like really truly brings us happiness, I think that's where we really get the real growth. And I think having that balance is so important. And I like that you brought that up and that you had that really visceral like underlying meaning come through during your experience, because I think that that's something that we should all be paying attention to in some capacity, and having a solid understanding of that, because it's not obvious. It seems like it makes sense to like constantly be in hustle mode, but the fact is that in rest and recovery, just as with physical exercise, that's where we actually build the muscle, is when we step back from that and we take time to just enjoy ourselves, like go for a hike in nature. or like do something fun with a friend. Or recently, I've been watching Merlin. I am completely vacuumed into that show. It's so good.
Are you talking about the one with the young Merlin?
Yeah.
I love that show. It's so good.
Oh
So
man,
good.
I'm almost through with the second season, and like every single episode, I'm just like, who is this guy? Like Merlin has to stop him. Like, King Arthur is a douchebag, but I still like him. And King Uther,
I love that show.
Dude, it's so good. It's so good. It like strikes on a lot of I think really important points as well, that like, you know, Prince Arthur is not the most important person in the kingdom, but it's actually Merlin who's behind the scenes, like using this his magic to like prevent these bad things from happening, and like saving Arthur from dying in like pretty much every episode without Arthur even knowing. Like Merlin never gets credit for the times that he saves Arthur and for the times he saves Uther, and he like does the right thing just knowing that it's aligned with his destiny.
Yeah. That is such an amazing show. I've been listening on audiobook to The Mists of Avalon, which is another King Arthur, Merlin, you know, Morgaine story. But yeah, it's more elaborate. Like the whole book is 50 hours, or all three books are 50 hours long. And it's really cool. You should check it out.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a great story though.
I'm definitely really, really interested. I haven't done any research into like the actuality of the show, or like where it came from. Cause I feel like the tale of Merlin is like a very old tale. Mm-hmm. Like was the book written a super long time ago?
No, it's not like, I mean, it's still fictional, but it's based on the tale. I don't actually really know where the tale originally comes from, but I would love to know. Yeah,
because I feel like I've heard, I've known that like Merlin was a powerful sorcerer for like almost my entire life. I feel like I've heard, I've just heard that.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely is. I want to know more because I have a friend that connects really deeply with Merlin, and it's interesting. I want to learn. But something I wanted to say was I agree with you in how it's like those yin moments that bring us to a greater understanding. Like, you know, sometimes when you are in your like really sympathetic mind and you're like really stressed and all these things and you're working, and then it kind of blocks that ability to like feel that creative energy. And when I was traveling across country for a month, like that's actually where I gathered all of these ideas for the new potion. Like I started that journey with like no idea, like no clue, and then came back with this like total understanding of everything that I wanted to do. And I didn't work on that trip. Like I pretty much just traveled and, you know, went to different nature places and just drove around the country. But yeah, so all that time, it was just, I felt so free to collect all of these different inspirations and see some amazing places too. Like in New Orleans, I saw all these amazing occult stores that were beautifully decorated. Like House of Hoodoo, you should check it out. Or is it Hoodoo House? I think it's House of Hoodoo. It's awesome. And then like Elixir, and I found this really cool farmers market in California somewhere. I don't know where I was, but just all of these different places, like I was able to just collect all these little pieces of inspiration to formulate this new project. So yeah, I would say, you know, it for anyone who's like really wanting to create something new and has the space for it, just to go and just, you know, drive around and travel for a while and like live in a totally non-pressure way, even if it's just for like a day or two. Because so much inspiration and creativity can come out of that.
I love that you brought that up, because that's something I've been saying for a while. Like it sounds like you went and traveled and you got like new perspective on these like entities that you're already consistently feeding and like thinking about very frequently. But having that experience of like leaving somewhere where you're familiar and you have all these reference points to your life, being out of that environment and into some place you've never been before, just experiencing things that are that you're just following towards them because it feels right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That and yeah, like following the flow, like when you're traveling, just kind of seeing where the wind takes you, which is something I struggle with a lot because I'm like a really OCD, like kind of controlling my environment person.
Yeah.
But Tree was like, "Hey man, just like let's just chill. Let's just see like where we end up." And every time I allowed that to happen, even though it was really difficult and didn't come naturally, we ended up in these really beautiful, amazing places. So, if anything, I was learning that letting go and being free actually led to better results. Um, so yeah, that was really cool. I
In
was
a
going to say something
way,
else, but I forgot.
yeah, in a way, like it was actually more productive for you to leave the office or the studio and like leave all that behind, and you actually got more work done internally by like going and exploring these places.
Absolutely. So much internal work, so much. Like, especially having so many hours in the car to just sit there and like contemplate, you know?
Yeah.
And also, I think leaving Asheville too it has been a really amazing thing. Obviously, I love Asheville and I miss it every day, but being away from the environment that I got so comfortable in has like allowed me to like actually feel more motivated to do the things that I want to do. So, like I've noticed that ever since I've moved, I've been like more inspired and more proactive about like creating these new projects. Just to switch up the environment, like even if it's just for a little bit of time, you know? Um, so yeah, just like switching up your setting can be so beneficial for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
That's amazing. So we're coming up
Yeah.
on around an hour and a half. I want to ask you, what's the message that you want to share with the world?
Yeah. So I think I've been hitting on it a little bit, but I would just say, you know, like for anyone who has these things that they want to pursue in their life but don't feel like they can do it, like just do it anyway, you know, like even if it's hard at times, like even if you have to moonlight or work the night shifts or do some crazy shit to make it work, you know, like just go for it. You know, because it's so easy for us to make excuses like, oh, I have a job or I have kids or whatever, but no, like we can always make time to create the life that we want, because living the life that we want and living in alignment with our highest truth is the most important and essential thing we could possibly do for ourselves. So stop making excuses and just go live your life and make it work.
I love that. I feel that our intuition always knows what's best. Not
Yeah,
just for
it
right
does.
now, but for like overall, for the overarching story of our lives.
Hmm.
Internally, we know where we want to go, and when we
Yes.
make actions based on that, that's when the
Yeah.
magic really happens.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. And your intuition will also tell you that what you're doing is wrong. Like, you know, if it doesn't resonate. So I think it's really important to listen to that too and follow what it wants us to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So, what's next for you? What are you excited for that's upcoming?
Um, I would say just making this rebrand happen and really bringing this company to a place where it's much bigger and much more accessible. Because we have not done any sort of anything, vending, nothing, since COVID hit. Uh, so yeah, probably like 2 summers ago was the last time we actually vended. So just to come out of that with something completely fresh, I'm really excited to like bring it to the world. Um, and yeah, just start rolling on it.
That's super exciting.
Yeah.
So, where can our viewers/listeners connect with you?
So our Facebook and our Instagram handle are currently at Potion AVL. That's like Asheville AVL. And we'll probably change the name soon, but I'm pretty sure that if you're already following someone on Instagram and they change the name, you stay following them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Potion AVL is our handle.
Awesome. Fantastic. And all those links are going to be down there in the description if you want to connect with Victoria and talk about herbs. I know I've learned a lot from this conversation. And Victoria, thank you so much for taking the time to be on here. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, that's it. I really appreciate you and for asking me to come on here. And I love following your art and everything that you do. So just keep doing it.
Thank you. That really truly means a lot. And thank you to all the listeners who are tuned in to this episode of the Visionary Art Podcast. Would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. And of course, all those links and information is going to be in the description. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful night.
Bye.